Welcome to Dhamma USA's Thursday's guest lecture series. Today we are honored to present lecture number 39, featuring a topic that holds great significance for all of us, navigating the path to Nibbāṇa, practical steps for transformation, part 1. We are thrilled to have participants from around the world joining us through Dhamma USA's YouTube channel, Facebook page, and other social media groups. This series aims to benefit the enthusiastic learners of Buddhism, and we extend a warm invitation to all lay Buddhist scholars and practitioners to be part of this enlightened journey. Our esteemed guest speaker today is a medical doctor and a meditation practitioner who would like to remain anonymous. More information about her work can be found at her YouTube channel called Be My Best Movement. Please visit our website at dhammausa.org for her channel links. Without further delay, I invite our guest speaker to begin our lecture this evening. We encourage active participation from all attendees, so feel free to ask questions and share your thoughts in the comment section.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And without much ado, let's go ahead. Can I have my first slide, please? So today we'll be discussing how to navigate the path to Nibbāṇa. I too am on this path, so therefore I will share. I've learned a lot and I would love to share those with you. And at the end, let's have a conversation so that maybe you could teach me some facts too. We will be focusing on the practical steps. And this is one of the most important things I learned. When I started on this journey, I knew the why, like we all do, but I didn't realize the significance of the why. You see, let me give you a simple example. Let's say you wanted to go to the grocery store to purchase some milk. And as you went out, you had a flat tire and it started pouring and it was raining so hard. If you had milk in the house and you just thought of going out, you'll say, no, I'll go another day and come back. On the other hand, if you had a small child and was crying because the child was hungry and you had no milk in the house, well, then you will fix that tire and you get to the grocery store and buy the milk. So now you understand how important the why is, because we have so many obligations, we have so many other things we can do. We will always keep pushing and putting this mission of attaining Nibbāṇa on the back burner because other things become prioritized. So hence the reason you have to know the why. So let's look at the why. The why is explained in the Four Noble Truths. And this is the easiest way that I understood the why. You know, every day, all of us practically are under serious stress, irrespective of where we are in the spectrum. And throughout our life, we are suffering. So Lord Buddha taught us and gave us instructions on how to overcome this. And for that, he explained why we have suffering and how we can end the suffering and the exact steps we have to take. And that is what we'll be talking about today. So that is explained in the Four Noble Truths, and the actual path is explained as the Noble Eightfold Path. And in that, the Satipatthana Sutta also plays a big role, as well as mindfulness. So in these four parts, we will be discussing each one of those in a way that is applicable to us in this day and age. And then, in addition, in my own practice, I have noticed the importance of the five hindrances and how we have to overcome them in order to achieve the ultimate goal of attaining Nibbāṇa. On this path, it's also useful for us to know a little bit of technical aspects, things like the five aggregates, which is well known to us, and a little bit of basics of Abhidhamma, which I will touch upon in these four parts. So, but my focus is mostly on the practical steps. And again, there are multiple ways, and this is one of those ways, plus the broad steps that we have to take. So, attaining Nibbāṇa in the most practical sense is a method of training our mind to see things as they truly are. Training our mind to see things as they truly are. And again, the whole purpose is to eliminate suffering so that we will be happy and will have permanent peace of mind, something we all yearn for. So, as I said in the four parts, today we will kind of look at the overview. And remember, it's called Path to Nibbāṇa, implying that there is a path, which means there are stages. So, we will talk about those stages, and then we will begin the path, which is like getting ready to go on this path. So these are the first three we will discuss today. In part 2, we will discuss more about getting ready. First, it will be our body, and next will be our mind. And then we will actually embark on the journey by learning certain techniques of meditation. First, focusing on the body. And in part 3, we will focus mostly on the mind. And then part 4 will come the final finale of the understanding of anicca, dukkha, which is impermanence and suffering, is dukkha. Dukkha is suffering. And then also anatta, which will be just a word for you, and we will go into much greater lengths on discussing that in part 4. Finally, I will end our discussion in part 4 with Buddhist mindfulness. So today we will be discussing the overview, 4 stages, and how to get ready to be on this journey. Before we do that, this is one very important thing I want to emphasize. The time to embark on this journey is now. You know, nowhere in the scripture or anywhere do they say we have to do this in another birth. A human birth where we have exposure and the ability to pursue this path is very rare. Imagine if you were born in some place that there is a war going on, or there is no food, like a desert, and people are starving. And we don't have any of those problems today at this moment. So today, please make up your mind wherever you are in the world that today is the first day that you will embark on this journey. The time is now. And then again, in my own practice, I have noticed, because there is so much things being thrown at us, you have to stay focused. And don't forget that mission of attaining Nibbāṇa. At the same time, at the very beginning, when I really, I've been a Buddhist all my life, but when I really, really kind of made it my mission to get somewhere and then, actually enter the path, the desire was overwhelming to attain Nibbāṇa. And that caused my mind to become very restless. So, lesson number one is you have to be determined, but don't let that desire get too much, because that will cause your mind to be restless and that will be a hindrance for you. Again, be very patient and kind to yourself. Take one step at a time. And please, please, please do not listen to naysayers. There are a lot of people who say, postpone it, do it at another birth or whatever. Please, the time is now and we can do this. Imagine the number of people who have achieved and attained Nibbāṇa before us. So there is absolutely no reason why we cannot do that. That's number one. But the other practical reason is, if you start with this notion that it is something impossible, well, then it will be impossible. So this is why it is so important to know that there are others who have achieved this and done this, and therefore so can I. So go with that determination, be focused, and make it your mission. And the more I learn, the more I realize that it is real common sense. And this is another lesson I learned, which is, please think in your native language. Learn the subject matter, but when you are contemplating and meditating, think in your native language. It becomes a lot easier. First, we will talk about 3 steps you have to take no matter what you are going to do. And this is relevant to attaining Nibbāṇa as well as learning anything else too, because you have to know what the syllabus is, what are the subjects, what are the concepts that you are trying to train your mind. And then you really have to understand these concepts. And that is what we will do in the next 4 parts. And once you understood the subject matter, then you have to be like a scientist. And you have to start observing your own mind and confirm the accuracy of the theoretical concepts you learned. So, in other words, we nowadays call it the scientific method. You learn some theory, and next you, like a scientist, have to observe your own mind and see whether this is true. The only important thing you have to realize is, unlike any other scientific experiment you had done in the past, the only tool we have to look at our mind is our mind. So that is why we have to spend some time training our mind to be the best tool it can be. And that would be a mind that is calm and that is focused. So with this tool, a mind that is calm and focused, you start observing your own mind, and then you contemplate on what you observed. And that's the only way you can confirm the accuracy of what you learned. Once you've done that, basically you've learned the theory, you've learned the concepts, then you actually observed it and contemplated what your observations. Now you are convinced that this is the truth. Now comes the hardest and the final step, which is we have to retrain our mind to see things as they truly are. And the only way a human being can retrain their mind is by repeated sessions of quiet contemplation. So, let's look at why we need repeated contemplations in order to retrain our mind. So this is an example that I like. If you think of a jungle and think of a path in a jungle, the more you walk, the better the path becomes, right? Now think of creating a new path. What do you have to do? You have to close the old path and start walking on the new path and get everyone to walk on that path. Because the more people that walk on the new path, the better that path will be. And in our mind, in our brain, we have these specific cells which you can see in blue here. They have little tentacles. They join together and they too create pathways. And what happens is the more you use a certain technique, or that those pathways become clearer. And that is the basis of whether you are planning to play tennis or whether you are retraining your mind. The principle is the same. And that is also shown in this same diagram. The more you practice a behavior or a meditation or anything, that path becomes clearer and the other paths die off. We use this if someone is practicing a sport, playing a piano. So this is common to all human activities. So now you know why repeated sessions are needed. So, to summarize this part of our conversation, our mission is to train our mind to see things as they truly are. And yes, we can attain Nibbāṇa, but we have to be determined, we have to be patient, and we should not listen to people who say we cannot. This is also the same thing in a different format. So basically, step 1 is you know the mind. Then step 2 is like a scientist, you look at the mind. And then finally, you retrain the mind. So since we said there was the path to Nibbāṇa has 4 stages. And we've all learned that in, you can say, Sowan, Sakurdagami, Anagami, Arihat, or in English, we call them stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and Nibbāṇa. So during these 4 stages, we let go of 10 chains that bind us. So let's kind of get an overview of what these chains are. So in the first stage, we will begin to understand 3 main subjects, which is knowledge about impermanence, knowledge about suffering, which is dukkha, and anatta. Again, these we will go into great detail in part 4. In the first stage, which is called stream entry or Sowan, we will eliminate a concept called Sakkaya Ditthi. Again, we will talk a lot more about this in part 4. This is just the overview. We will eliminate doubt about all the stuff we learn theoretically, because we ourselves, with our own mind, we would have seen that this is the truth. So there is no place for doubt. Also, once we see with our own mind what the truth is, we will automatically eliminate all unnecessary rituals and practices, because we now know the correct path we have to take. So that would be the first stage, or stream entry. So stream entry happens after you've learned the theory and after you observe the mind and confirm the path and what we learned in the theory part. But we still have not retrained our mind. That happens after that, after stream entry. So we continue to have to stay focused and keep practicing, and then we'll enter the second stage. And there, which is called once returner, we will start eliminating two bad qualities we have, which would be greed and desire and anger. We still will have some of it left, but the amount will come down, And again, at this stage, we would have a better understanding of the three main subjects, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Now comes the third stage, which is called non-returner. Once we reach that stage, we would have completely eliminated greed and desire, completely eliminated anger, and also have a much, much better understanding of the three main subjects. So now what we are doing is we understand the theory, we've seen the mind, and we've started retraining the mind. And once we have completely retrained our mind, which is, remember that old path, well, it no longer exists. And now we have a very clear new path that we can travel. We attain the fourth stage, which is called Nibbāṇa. That is the time we will have a complete realization of the three main subjects, which is anicca, dukkha, anatta. Again, we will be talking about these three words and their real meaning in part 4. So, once we attain Nibbāṇa, remember at each stage we got rid of some of the chains that bind us. We would have eliminated that sense of restlessness completely, and we would stop comparing ourselves to others, as well as having a desire to be born in higher abodes. So those are the final chains that we will let go of. So when we start on this journey, the first thing we have to do is learn to be the best person we can be, and we will be talking about that next. We will have to train our mind to be the best tool. We will talk about that in part 2 of this series. And then your understanding of the three main subjects, which is anicca, dukkha, and anattma, which means impermanence, suffering, and stress. And anatma means no self. But please don't worry too much about those words. We will talk about those more in part 4. But slowly our understanding of these subjects will improve as we go from one stage to the another. And in the fourth stage, we will have real understanding and clarification of these three subjects. And by the fourth stage, we would have broken free of all the 10 chains that bind us. So now let's actually embark on this journey. What is the first thing you have to do? The very first thing you have to do is to learn to be your best. Learn to be the best person you can be. Now, at this moment, I'd like you to look at this whole process this way. If we look at ourselves, we actually have two parts. We have a body, which we can all see, and we have the ability to think, which we call the mind. Okay? So, actually, it's a lot like a robot. So, if you look at a robot, especially on the left hand, on the slide, you see that this robot has something that looks like an eye, which is some kind of a sense device, and then has something that looks like an ear, which will sense sound. What will happen is this data will get into the computer processor in the brain area, and what will happen is it'll be processed, right? And then what will happen is it'll make some decisions. And then through another set of algorithms, it'll create a set of actions. And those actions will be implemented. So, for example, in the robo on the right side, it'll start walking. So, to summarize, it got data from the outside, it processed it, and then made some decisions, and then went on to create some actions, and then they were carried out. So that's how a robo works. Now, isn't that the same way we work? Look at this picture. We too have 5 sense organs, and in the Buddhist philosophy, we talk about the mind as another sense organ. We'll talk about that more in part 2. So all these sense organs bring data through the body into the mind, right? So the eyes will bring data about light. The ears will bring data about sound. The nose, smell, tongue, taste, skin, touch, and related senses. So all this data from the outside will come into the body via the sense organs, just like in the robo, but it's the mind that actually analyzes this data and come up with conclusions. And then the mind makes up its mind decides what actions to take and will instruct the body to carry on those actions. So this is what happens to us every second. And then if you pause for a second, we can only do 3 things. We can have a thought, or we can think, we can speak, and we can do physical activities. So remember this, or anything we do will belong to these 3 categories: a thought, ability to speak, ability to do physical activities. So learning to be the best person you can be, what does that mean? It means that we have to teach our mind to tell the body not to do certain things, or encourage the body to do certain other things. So for us as practicing Buddhists, the easiest way to be the best person we can be is by following the 5 precepts. Now, with this new unique understanding that you just had, what does this mean? you say you want to avoid killing or hurting anything that is alive. So, how does that happen? The mind has to tell the body, please don't kill that mosquito or whatever. So, it's basically a mind function. It's the mind that decides, okay, I'm not going to kill that mosquito. So, that is what you have to realize. The mind is the one that makes that decision. Same thing, avoid taking anything that does not belong to you. Same concept, avoid sexual misconduct. And those were like activities, like physical activities. Now comes the speech part, which is avoid telling a lie, use your speech to hurt others, or waste time gossiping. If you take intoxicating substances, what's going to happen? Your ability to make proper judgments gets impaired. So that is why this is not a good idea. And also, not shouldn't do a job that harms others. I mean, I was amazed, like this is true even to this day, right? Avoid trading in poisons, guns, and other weapons, trading in people and intoxicants, or anything else that could harm another human being. That's not a good job to have. Be kind, be compassionate, and of course, share your wealth and, more important, your knowledge with fellow human beings. All these are ways that you can learn to be the best person you can be. And then this is very important. Every day, critically look at yourself and see, how can I be better tomorrow? Never compare with somebody else but yourself. And that way, you will continue to be a better person every day. I did not realize how important this is until recently. It is so very important to have friends that help you, nurture you, and encourage you to go on this journey. If you have friends that dissuade you or distract you or send you on a different path, this journey becomes more difficult. So, having good friends that will guide you, are very important. So, now we talked about the 5 precepts. As you know, I'm a medical doctor, so I have learned that the next set of things that I'm going to talk about is important and helpful for us as we go on this journey. And that is focusing on our body. One thing, these days life is so stressful. A lot of us, majority of us, are sleep deprived, and that leads to what's called the sleep deficit. Like, we are chronically sleep deprived, so we need to catch up. So even if you felt like sleeping 9 hours a day is okay, make sure you are well rested, okay? Otherwise, you can't go on this journey. Again, if you eat a huge meal, you can't do anything, leave alone meditate. So it's important to eat healthy food. Again, I personally don't think it's a good idea to avoid food, but frequent small meals is the way to go as you embark on this journey and start going on this journey. You need plenty of water, and obviously, it's not a good idea to have stimulants or drugs that can affect your judgment. But water is critical because about 70% of our body is made out of water. So, we were talking about how to take care of our body from a very practical point of view. I want to mention a few things about the mind, but we will do the bulk of our conversation in part two. So, remember, we said we have to learn the theory and the concepts, and then we have to do our own experiment. As we are doing this experiment, the only tool we have is the mind. So we want it to be the best tool it can be. Most of the time, because of all the horrible things that's happening in this world, our mind is like a stormy ocean. So as we embark on this journey, we should strive hard to make that like a calm lake, right? And that is what the bulk of our next conversation would be. But on this one, I want to share a few practical things that has helped me. Number one, please look and try to eliminate as many responsibilities as you can, because if you have too many demands from you, you really can't go on this journey. And then constantly we are being bombarded with saying you need to buy this in order to be happy, or feel better, so on and so forth. It never gives you happiness, but at the same time you can get misled. But if you start with a place of being frugal, it helps you to be happy with what you have, and thereby helps your mind to be like a calm lake. And then the third thing is avoid stressful environments. It could be a workplace situation, it could be your social media that's bombarding you with messages, so on and so forth. So whatever it is, look and actively avoid stressful environments. And again, as I mentioned before, the TV has become a nightmare these days. They're constantly telling you all the bad news from all over the world nonstop, and it can be very traumatizing. And the same goes for digital media. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but it has become a big problem for you and me. So please pay attention and try to limit exposure to these stressful environments. This You will understand this concept more in after you listen to how the mind works in part two. But having a clutter-free house or even a tiny little area makes a huge difference. And also, less sound, the better it is. Less distractions, the better it is. And more important for a lot of us, you have to feel safe. Okay. If you feel unsafe, you really cannot have a peaceful mind. All these are methods that we are using to create that peaceful, calm mind in order to make it the best tool to use. This is not Buddhism, but it is something that's helped me all my life. So I thought I'll share it with you as well. Anytime you're under super stress, it helps to write it down. Grab a piece of paper, go to a safe place, be by yourself, and write down your frustration, your anger, and have a good cry if you have to. But then tear this piece of paper into small pieces and then throw it away. Don't keep it, don't read it again. And if it is an ongoing trauma, it's a great idea to do it every day. And if you make it a habit, it will help you in many ways. So try it and see whether it works for you as well. Now, we talked about the 5 precepts. We talked about how to make ourselves the best person that you can be. But remember, habits have a way of creeping back. So you have to have your antennas up and make sure that all these new good habits that you are trying to cultivate uh, are nurtured. Otherwise, your old habits will come back, guaranteed. So, as we go on this journey, it is very, very, very important to stay humble because you can learn from everyone. But for that, you have to stay humble. And then the second thing is when someone says something, listen, contemplate, and then decide whether it'll help you to go on this journey or whether it's a technique that's not that helpful to you. Okay? And then I personally feel this is a time that we need to help and nurture each other because that way we will all get to go on this journey together. So, to summarize our conversation, number one, and the most important thing is know that you can attain Nibbāṇa because do not listen to naysayers. It is all common sense. It is not anything exotic. And then, please, until next Thursday, I want you to really focus on the stuff we talked about and focus on ways that you can take care of your body so that you can start on this journey. Eat healthy food, have adequate sleep, drink plenty of water, try to reduce the large number of responsibilities you have, and then avoid social media and turn off your TV and try to have a calm mind, okay? And focus on your five precepts and see what opportunities you have to be better and with the five precepts. And that way you will be ready next Thursday to embark on the journey where we will talk about how to get our mind, which is like a stormy ocean, how we can get that to be like a calm lake. Because the mind is the primary tool we have to use for this journey. So, that is the end of part one. And I just want to, I made one typo there. It should be tinyurl.com/path to Nibbāṇa. So it's tinyurl as in Larry.com/path to Nibbāṇa. You will get like little 10-minute videos there of what we talked about. So that's all I had to say. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Doctor, for the enlightening lecture. We now open the floor for the Q&A session. Please feel free to share your questions or thoughts in the comment section, and we will be delighted to respond. Let me see if we have some. I guess I have a question.
Okay.
When we go to work, most of us we work full time, and then most of the time we spend 80% of our time at work dealing with many different personalities of our colleagues.
Yes.
How can we train our mind to separate ourselves from the toxic environment?
Yes. Uh, I'll tell you practical things that I've done. One of the things is to really have your antennas up, like, consciously look at your mind and see whether it is at peace. And if you notice that a certain set of interactions makes your mind like a stormy ocean,
Mm-hmm.
when you come home that day, just do a post-mortem on those interactions and then decide, okay, next time I encounter that environment, how am I going to work at it? Because at that moment there is no way you will figure it out. So
Mm-hmm.
you need time, and it is mentioned even in the scriptures. I was shocked to hear that, read that. So what it says is, be conscious, realize that your mind was in a turmoil, and then go home when at a quiet moment. My journaling really helps me. Try to figure out, okay, how else could I have done that better without getting agitated? And then the second thing is truly have compassion. That's one thing. You start feeling sorry for some of these people who try to hurt you intentionally or try to create havoc in the office environment. So if you have compassion for one thing, you will kind of understand where they are coming from. So it won't be something that is going to affect you. So that's the second thing. And the third thing I'd like to share is, if you can't avoid it, let's say it's like your co-work and you have to earn a living, you have to work with them, create like a invisible bubble and don't let the toxicity come in. My brother taught this to my niece when she was very small, and I still use it. It's a great way to say, okay, they can say hurtful things, but it's not going to come beyond my protective environment. So, as a last resort, it's a very practical thing that you can do. So, those three things.
I'm going to practice that invisible bubble. Okay, we have a question. How to separate the toxic mind?
How to separate the toxic mind? Hmm. I'm not sure what they are trying to ask. It could be the mind is like, say, we have our body and then we have our mind. The mind is a relatively clean place. We are the one who brings on toxicity from the outside. So, especially in part two, we will learn how to calm the mind. So, that's probably what he or she was talking about. Basically, uh, how to make a mind that is like a stormy ocean become calm. So that's probably, I hope that's what it is, and we will talk more next time. I don't know what else to say about that.
I think Doctor is just going back to my question earlier, where
Uh-huh.
you have to create that boundaries, right?
Boundaries. That's
So,
a good word to
um,
use. Yes.
so that
Yes.
way that way we retrain the mind when the situation is happening, because
Yes.
you don't when you're working in a group project, for example, with those toxic colleagues, you don't have
Yes.
time to meditate,
Oh,
right?
no, no,
So
no,
so
no way.
like you said earlier, we have to create the invisible boundary so that way, you know, we don't take things personal, or
Exactly,
you know.
exactly. And as you go deeper and deeper, like by the time you're in part four, the true philosophical meaning of a separate body, mind, and the interactions, we can look at it in a very philosophical way. But
Mhm.
the practical part is more critical for this section where, since we are working, since we have to earn money, we have to be practical about that. So
Yeah.
that's our starting point.
Okay. Okay. How to start the path as a beginner, especially with busy lifestyles?
Very good question. And the first thing, as everything I say, we will go step by step. But today is the first day of the rest of your life. So today you should please start this journey. That's very important. Number two is please make sure that your body is comfortable. Take adequate sleep, eat, drink water. That kind of stuff is very important. And the second aspect of really starting the training of the mind, we will talk about in part two,
Okay.
and that will be your journey. But being the best person you can be is actually the first part, and that's what we talked about today. And in the true Buddhist philosophy, we call it sila. I called it being the best person you can be because it makes more logical sense. But the three, if you remember, it's sila, samadhi, prajna. Sila means being the best person you can be. Samadhi means having a calm, peaceful mind. And that's what we'll talk about next time. So today, please start on this journey.
It's hard not to, ask the next, steps.
Yes, yes, yes.
Let's see. The next question is, humans have become more robotic today. How to encourage them to practice meditation?
Yeah, that is true. Uh, I often think about it. I don't have an answer to it, but there is one thing I have learned, which is if you start practicing and if you look happy and peaceful, that is the way that you can encourage others to join you. And if somebody asks you, then you can offer them advice. And of course, venues like this, where we are all on the same wavelength, it is a great opportunity for us. But some folks do not hear what is being said. If they are really restless, if their minds are like stormy oceans, at least try to help them from a materialistic point of view to get their lives in order, so that maybe you can help them to have a little bit of quietness, and that's when they'll have the ability to contemplate. But unfortunately, it's going to be a challenge for us these days.
You talk about the social media distraction. Any tips to avoid it? Maybe don't
I'll
have
tell you what I try, and I consistently fail too. So, one of the things, and I've read this ad nauseum, and but it works if you try, is to have very strict times that you switch it on. And just the other day, I learned some technique, which is like I closed my laptop. Like I
Mhm.
usually, let it go to sleep. And then I will try to read a book or whatever. But I realized my mind is constantly like checking things. And I've shut off all notifications on things like WhatsApp, and shut off your phone if you're not on call, like as a medical doctor. Uh, Notifications. So two things practical. Number one, decide this is the time I'm going to check my social media, and after that I'm not going to check it. So that's one thing you could easily do. Number two, towards evening, definitely have a social media and TV free interval, especially before you go to sleep. it is well known that it will help you sleep. So those are two things. And then all those silly notifications which are not needed. I mean, you need your cell phone to ring, but WhatsApp and Facebook and Gmail and all those notifications, you can certainly shut them off, and that will help you. And good luck.
Next question is, what does Nibbāṇa mean to you?
Yeah. You will have the final answer to this when you completed part 4. But to me, Nibbana means looking at the world in a different way, because remember in that picture that I showed you, our sensory sensors bringing data and then we interpret them. The problem with our mind is the way we are interpreting it. So, if we can learn the correct interpretation, it doesn't matter what the world brings to us, we will have the proper interpretation. And to me, that is what Nibbana is, the correct interpretation of the world. I hope that answers that question.
So Nibbāṇa doesn't necessarily means another world like heaven.
No,
Okay.
definitely not. That heaven is here, it's how we interpret it. And do we have time? Or I can give you a totally outside, totally irrelevant example for this. You know, as a medical student, we learn to listen to the heart using the stethoscope, right? So the very first time we are deadly scared of our lecturers and our consultants. So we put the stethoscope, we don't hear a thing. Okay. But then we are taught how to listen and what kind of noises are made when you have certain diseases. So the longer we listen, we start hearing them. It's the same person, same stethoscope, but we finally start hearing noises. And now, after about 30 years of practicing, the moment I put the stethoscope, I know what the disease is. That we use the same tool, which is the stethoscope, but our knowledge and the method of hearing changed. And it's the same thing. We will be seeing the same thing. We will get the same data from our senses, but our interpretation of the data will change. And that is what Nibbana is.
Okay, the last question, Doctor. How to avoid procrastination?
I've read stuff. But again, I will tell you practically, you know, there are certain weeks that I tend to procrastinate on meditation. I know I have to do it, but I don't. So the thing that's helped me is journaling. I write down why am I procrastinating, and usually you will find your own reason why you are not doing whatever it is that you are supposed to do. And once you know the why, you can fix it. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I'm not talking about Nibbana, but if you talk about procrastination as a principle, uh, if you write down on a certain day, I'm going to do it and stick to that, it really helps. So that is a practical thing, but for the meditation and to avoid procrastination, it's very helpful to journal and remind ourselves that our time is running out. So that is how I deal with it.
Okay, I think that's it
Okay.
for the questions for tonight. Thank you again for attending, providing guest lecture, providing lecture for tonight. We also would like to thank all of our participants from around the world for joining us this evening. Thank you all for being a part of this wonderful event. We hope today's lecture has enriched your knowledge and inspired you all on your journey towards inner peace and harmony. Let us continue to learn, grow, and support each other in our quest for greater understanding of Dhamma. Please remember that our Dhamma journey doesn't end here. You can explore more Dhamma resources and updates on our website, dhammausa.org, or our blog, dhammausa.com. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at info@dhammausa.com. Until we meet again next Thursday, may the Dhamma guide us all towards a peaceful and harmonious life. Thank you.